At 42, I saw my husband, Ryan, on TV, despite the fact that he had been dead for 20 years. He had returned to the country as a prestigious talent recruit, now a renowned medical PhD advisor. I turned to my in-laws in shock, but they were beaming with pride, murmuring about how our ancestors must have blessed them, how their son had brought honor to the family. When I confronted them, they responded with absolute righteousness. If we hadn't lied to keep you here, who would have taken care of us? How could Ryan have left with peace of mind to study abroad? A few days later, Ryan returned with his foreign wife and children, only to throw me out of the house. Fiona, you're nothing but an old hag now. You're not worthy of me. Enraged, I tried to fight back, but they joined forces and pushed me down the stairs, staging my death as an accident. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the year 1980. This time, let Ryan take care of his paralyzed mother and his father suffering from kidney failure. I would go abroad to study and contribute to the advancement of my country's medical industry. Chapter 1. Fiona, I can help you submit your study abroad application to the professor. The weight in my hand suddenly lightened. I lifted my gaze to see Ryan's youthful face and frozen place. Noticing my distraction, he playfully flicked my nose, his voice gentle. Don't space out. Go home and grab your documents. We still have to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get our marriage certificate this afternoon. Hearing his words, I realized I had been reborn. I was back in 1980. Humiliation and disgust surged within me. I wiped my nose hard, as if trying to scrub away the filth of his touch. I snatched my application from his hand with force. No need. I'll submit it myself. Ryan and I were university classmates, known as the star couple of top students. We both majored in clinical medicine, but I was the top of our class, the #1 student. Meanwhile, Ryan could never surpass me in exams. He was always second place. Seeing my sudden change in attitude, a flicker of panic flashed in Ryan's eyes. He grabbed my hand, refusing to let go. Why are you suddenly angry? I'm heading to school anyway. I can drop it off for you and save you a trip. His words instantly raised my suspicions. In my past life, he had submitted my application on my behalf. But when the final list of candidates for studying abroad was released, my name was nowhere to be found, only his was there. Our program had only one spot. The only way Ryan could get it was if I gave it up. Before I could even question him about it, his parents came to me in tears, saying he had died in a car accident on his way to buy me flowers. Overwhelmed by grief and guilt, I believed them. His parents were already in poor health, and after his supposed death, they deteriorated further. I had no choice but to give up my career and stay home, dedicating myself to taking care of them. Yet, in the end, everything had been a lie. Thinking about this, I forcefully shook off his hand. No need. I'll only feel at ease if I hand it to the professor myself. Seeing my stubbornness, he panicked. Fiona, what do you mean by that? Do you really think I would harm you? If that's the kind of person you think I am, then let's break up and forget about getting our marriage certificate today. I didn't even spare him a glance. Turning around, I walked straight toward the university without looking back. Ryan pounded on the door behind me in frustration. When I arrived at the university and handed my application to the professor, my eyes fell on another application form on the desk, one with Ryan's name on it. The professor noticed my gaze and spoke. A few days ago, Ryan submitted his application. He said you two were getting married and that you were staying behind to take care of his parents. I thought it was such a shame. Losing someone as talented as you would be a huge loss for our country's medical field. But I'm glad you've changed your mind. I suppressed the anger rising in my chest and firmly reassured the professor. Professor, I never intended to give up medical research. I will definitely take this opportunity to study abroad on the government scholarship. And I've already broken up with Ryan. Nothing can stop me now. A trace of relief appeared on the professor's face. Fiona, you are the most outstanding student I've ever taught. I believe in you. After leaving the university, I went to the cemetery to visit my parents. Both of them had been brilliant doctors. The new medications they developed had advanced our country's medical industry. But their research also made them targets of foreign threats. They died in a plane crash. I had sworn to carry on their legacy and dedicate myself to the nation's medical progress. On my way home, I felt an unusual sense of lightness, unconsciously humming a tune. But the moment I reached my doorstep, I saw Ryan glaring at me, his face twisted with fury. "Fiona, do you have any idea how long I waited for you outside the Civil Affairs Bureau this afternoon?" Chapter 2. I looked Ryan up and down before smiling. "Didn't you say we broke up? Why were you still waiting at the Civil Affairs Bureau?" A flicker of shock crossed Ryan's face, and then his expression turned red with rage. Fine. Fiona, you've got guts. Don't come crying to me later. I wouldn't marry you even if you begged." I rolled my eyes. "Take care. I won't see you off." As I watched Ryan storm away, a cold smirk formed on my lips. I was curious to see how he would survive this time, without a scholarship to go abroad and with his sickly parents clinging to him. The next afternoon, I received a message from my professor. My study abroad application had been approved, and I needed to return to the university to complete some paperwork. Just as I finished filling out the forms and stepped out of the office, I ran into Ryan, arm in arm with Selena, a student from the anesthesiology program. The two of them were intimately close. I recognized Selena in my past life. She and Ryan had gone abroad together. They got married and had children overseas, returning to China as a celebrated couple. She was also the one who encouraged Ryan to throw me out of the house. I hadn't expected these two scumbags to get together even earlier in this life, thanks to my actions. Ryan sneered at me when he saw my gaze. "Fiona, I'm with Selena now. My parents have already accepted her as their daughter-in-law. From now on, we're strangers, even if you regret it. It's too late." I calmly nodded and walked past them at an unhurried pace. But suddenly, Selena spoke up. "Fiona, Ryan and I are getting our marriage certificate soon. You'd better stay away from him." I turned back and met her gaze with a knowing smile. "Congratulations on stepping into your personal hell ahead of schedule." "Fiona, what nonsense are you spouting?" Ryan flew into a rage, yelling at me. "You're such a difficult woman. No wonder nobody likes you. If you want to leave, then get lost." I simply smiled, refusing to argue with him. That only infuriated him further. Even as I walked away, I could still faintly hear his curses. I had assumed that in this life, Selena would follow the same fate I had in my previous one, marrying Ryan, having her study abroad opportunity stolen by him, and being forced to stay behind to take care of his parents. But to my surprise, in just 3 short days, she was already arguing with Ryan in the middle of the street, pulling at each other in front of a crowd. Selena had grown up in luxury, pampered from a young age. She had never endured any hardship. Yet Ryan and his parents foolishly believed she was just like me, someone they could easily manipulate. The day Selena moved in with Ryan, his mother immediately ordered her to wipe her body and wake up in the middle of the night to empty the chamber pot. His father was even worse. He demanded that Selena hand-wash his undergarments, and whenever he was in a bad mood due to his illness, he would lash out at her with insults. In their eyes, being chosen by Ryan was a privilege that Selena should be grateful for. Selena, however, had no intention of suffering in silence. She publicly aired all her grievances, and with that, Ryan's reputation was utterly ruined. With parents like his, no woman would willingly marry into their family and endure such hardship. But Ryan was desperate to go abroad. He needed to find some unlucky fool to stay behind and take care of his parents. That day, I was studying English in the library when Ryan came looking for me. "Fiona, I was wrong before. I only got close to Selena to make you jealous. Let's get back together." I put down my book and followed him outside the library. "Ryan, do you take me for an idiot? Selena wasn't willing to suffer for you. What makes you think I would be?" A flash of malice crossed Ryan's eyes, but he quickly concealed it. He looked at me with feigned sincerity. "Fiona, how could I bear to make you suffer? You're about to study abroad, aren't you? I'll stay here and take care of my parents. I'll work hard and wait for you to return after completing your studies." I stared at him coldly. I had heard these exact words in my previous life. Because I had believed them, I had pitied him for having to bear the burden alone. Before leaving, I had poured my heart into taking care of his parents, trying to ease his troubles. And in return, I had been deceived, had my study abroad opportunity stolen, and was turned into a slave for his family. In the end, they had even killed me together. I took a deep breath, suppressing the urge to strangle him on the spot. A mocking smile curled at my lips. But by the time I return from abroad, I'll be at the doctorate level. And you'll still just be an ordinary worker. By then, you won't even be worthy of me. Chapter 3. Ryan's face darkened, his voice trembling with rage. Fiona, I never expected you to be such a materialistic woman. I really misjudged you. You really think you can go abroad smoothly? Let me tell you, there's no way. After throwing out his threat, he stormed off. But his words left me with a vague sense of unease. Over the past few days, I had kept a close watch on the university's government-sponsored study abroad program. When I confirmed that my name was still on the list, I finally let out a small sigh of relief. However, just 1 week before my departure, my professor knocked on my door in a panic. Fiona, something has happened. Someone has filed a real name report accusing you of plagiarism in your thesis. This morning, the department formed a special investigation team, and they've already held a meeting to discuss canceling your study abroad spot. I was momentarily stunned, but then my eyes filled with understanding. Professor, the person who reported me, is it Ryan? The professor hesitated, as if afraid of hurting me, and cautiously said, maybe there's some misunderstanding between you two. Why don't you talk to him yourself? I shook my head and took the professor's hand, reassuring him, there's no misunderstanding. He did it on purpose. Don't worry, Professor. I have evidence to clear my name. When I arrived at the university, the investigation team had already gathered. Ryan, as the whistleblower, was also present. The moment he saw me, he put on a furious act and shouted, Fiona, you don't deserve to be number one. You even stole my research data for your thesis. What right do you have to take the national scholarship and study abroad? I didn't even spare him a glance. Instead, I calmly handed my evidence to the investigation team. Here is the proof that I did not plagiarize. Please review it. Professors, when I was in a relationship with Ryan, I never held anything back from him. All the data for my research was openly accessible to him. But what he didn't know was that I had a habit of keeping backups. I had copies of all my original research materials. Seeing how calm I was, Ryan started to panic. Don't think you can fool the investigation team with forged evidence. I smiled faintly. Justice speaks for itself. An hour later, the investigation team called Ryan into the office, their expressions dark. In the end, he was officially reprimanded by the university for filing a false report, and my government-sponsored study abroad placement remained intact. It wasn't until later that I learned Ryan had lost the hospital job he had secured due to the disciplinary action. That night, he got himself drunk and pounded on my door, shouting, Fiona, let me tell you something. If it weren't for that study abroad spot, I would have never dated a tomboy like you. Who the hell do you think you are to dump me? Who else would even want you? You're just a woman. In the end, you'll have to go back to being a housewife and raising kids. What's the point of fighting against me? My fingers clenched into fists. So this was how Ryan had always seen me. No wonder he had been so ruthless in my past life. He kept shouting endlessly, causing my neighbors to open their doors and call for me to do something about him. I grabbed a chamber pot from my room, opened the door, and threw its contents straight at his face. Ryan sobered up instantly. He wiped his face with his hand and brought it to his nose, his face twisted in horror as he gagged. Fiona, did you just throw urine at me? I raised my other hand, holding another chamber pot, and threatened, if you don't leave right now, I'll throw feces next. Seeing the filth in my hand, Ryan turned pale and scrambled away in a panic. You're insane. You're completely insane. The next morning, I was riding my bicycle to the library when Ryan's parents blocked my path at the street corner. His mother, dragging her crippled right leg, thrust a death certificate in front of me. Fiona, Ryan had an accident. He was hit by a car and died. His father grabbed my arm, nearly pulling me off my bicycle. He went out to apologize to you. You're the one who got him killed. I hadn't expected Ryan to try the fake death trick again in this life. Both of them clung to me with a death grip. Ryan was calling your name before he died. Are you really so heartless that you won't even go see him? Since Ryan had prepared such an elaborate show for me, it was only right that I played along. But this time, I wasn't going alone. Not only did I bring my professors and classmates from school, but I also made sure to hire a full funeral procession. When his mother saw the large crowd, a hint of panic flashed across her face. Fiona, you wouldn't want to see him being cremated, right? Why don't you leave first, and we'll take care of the funeral arrangements afterward? I shook my head. If he couldn't let go of me in life, then I must personally send him off on his final journey. I turned to the funeral team. Please take care of it. As soon as I spoke, in front of his parents' shocked and horrified eyes, the funeral workers stepped forward and set fire to the pile of dry straw beneath Ryan's corpse. Chapter 4. Flames spread rapidly, engulfing the dry grass in an instant. Ryan burst out of the fire, screaming, "A ghost! He's come back to life!" Ah! Chaos erupted, and terrified screams filled the air. Fortunately, someone reacted quickly, grabbing their coat to extinguish the flames on Ryan's body. People scrambled to carry Ryan to the hospital. Meanwhile, Selena seized the opportunity to slip away and run home. At the entrance of the operating room, Ryan's mother sobbed hysterically, her voice trembling with hatred as she glared at me. "Fiona, if anything happens to my son, I swear I will never forgive you. My poor son. How did he end up falling for such a heartless woman?" Ryan's father punched the hospital wall, his eyes filled with murderous intent, as if he wanted to kill me on the spot. But I remained perfectly calm, reaching into my pocket and pulling out Ryan's death certificate. "So, Ryan isn't dead at all. Yet you told everyone he was, and this certificate is even stamped with the hospital's official seal. Tell me, were you lying? Or did the hospital make a diagnostic mistake? Auntie, uncle, if you forged this death certificate, you do realize that's a criminal offense, don't you?" At my words, Ryan's mother's grief-stricken expression stiffened, a flicker of guilt flashing in her eyes. "How could it be fake? The hospital issued this document. We didn't lie." I nodded, then dramatically raised my voice. "Oh my, so this hospital mistakenly declared a living person dead? Who knows how many innocent patients have been misdiagnosed before? What if they've misdiagnosed other diseases too? Who would dare to seek treatment here after this?" As soon as I finished speaking, panic spread among the patients' families. Their faces turned pale, and they began shouting, demanding refunds and transfers to other hospitals. The commotion quickly attracted the attention of the hospital director. Inside his office, the director examined Ryan's death certificate with a deep frown. "The stamp is indeed from our hospital. Immediately find out who issued this document. Rest assured, everyone, I will personally ensure a proper explanation for our patients and their families." Before long, a doctor named Daniel was brought in. The moment I saw him, I realized he was Selena's father. It wasn't hard to guess that Selena had orchestrated everything behind the scenes. What surprised me was that in my past life, the fake death certificate had also been arranged by her. As soon as Daniel saw the forged death certificate, he confessed everything. He begged the hospital director for another chance, but he didn't realize that the police were already waiting at the door. Since Daniel was involved in a major medical fraud, the police took him into custody on the spot. Before leaving, he turned to Ryan's parents and shouted, "This was all Ryan's idea. He told me to forge it. I had nothing to do with this. I'm innocent. You can't do this to me." Ryan's parents turned their heads away, pretending not to hear. Moments later, Selena rushed into the hospital. When she found out her father had been taken away by the police, her eyes reddened with fury as she glared at me. "Fiona, this is all your fault. You got Ryan seriously injured. He's in surgery right now, fighting for his life. And now, you even got my father arrested. You've ruined everything. Are you happy now?" I crossed my arms and looked at her calmly. "What does any of this have to do with me? I didn't force your father to forge that certificate. And what would I gain from Ryan faking his own death? If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being an idiot. Was it really worth ruining your father's life over a man?" Selena's face turned deathly pale, and even her voice trembled. "You knew, didn't you? You knew he was faking his death from the very start, and yet you still had them set the fire." I let out a mocking laugh, leaned in close, and whispered just loud enough for only the two of us to hear. "What a shame. Too bad he didn't burn to death." Chapter 5. Selena staggered back, staring at me as if I were a monster. You're insane. Fiona, you're completely crazy. I smiled but said nothing. After dedicating half my life to my husband and his family, only to be deceived and murdered, how could I not go mad? If I didn't still have some rationality left, Ryan would already be ashes by now. 3 hours later, Ryan was wheeled out of the operating room. The doctor announced that he had been brought in just in time. Though his body only suffered minor burns, his face was completely destroyed, permanently disfigured. Upon hearing this, Ryan's mother fainted on the spot, while his father stood outside the hospital room, chain-smoking with trembling hands. Inside the ward, Ryan woke up, only to go completely hysterical. Didn't I tell you to watch over my body? Why the hell did you just stand there and let her set me on fire? Look at me! I'm neither human nor ghost now. How the hell am I supposed to live like this? I already lost my job, and now my life is ruined. Where's Selena? She was the one who drugged me. Where is she? I had such a bright future ahead of me, and you all destroyed my dreams. You all deserve to die. Ryan's furious screams echoed down the halls as he cursed his parents until they fled the room. Hearing his tormented cries from outside, I felt nothing but satisfaction. Just then, Selena cautiously pushed the door open and stepped inside. Ryan, my father, he was arrested for forging your death certificate. Can you go out and clarify the truth? Tell them this was all your idea and that my father was just following orders. Why the hell should I? Ryan snapped viciously. If he had just done his job properly, none of this would have happened. I ended up like this because of him. He deserves to take responsibility. Ryan, you were the one who begged my father to. Before Selena could finish her sentence, the sound of shattering glass and a woman's terrified scream rang out through the room. In the next moment, blood trickled down Selena's forehead. Ryan stared at her coldly. Selena, don't think you can just walk away from this now. Your father is in prison, and now your reputation is stained. Do you really think you'll still be able to study abroad? Selena clutched her bleeding forehead, her eyes filled with utter disbelief. Ryan, what do you mean by that? Ryan stared at Selena, but the tenderness and affection he once had for her were gone. All that remained was hatred. You all ruined me. Why the hell should you get to walk away unscathed? I will never clear your father's name. At his words, Selena covered her face and ran out of the hospital room, sobbing. I wasn't surprised at all. Ryan was selfish to the core. Now that his life was destroyed, he wanted to drag everyone down to hell with him. I pushed open the door and stepped inside, my voice calm and cold. Ryan, if you weren't skilled enough, you should have worked harder instead of scheming to destroy others. What isn't yours will never truly belong to you. What did faking your death even get you? In the end, you only ended up ruining yourself. Ryan's eyes turned red with fury when he saw me. Fiona, you did this on purpose. You wanted to kill me. I gave him an innocent look. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Your parents are in poor health, and your family is broke. I spent my own money to hire a funeral team to take care of your remains. Wasn't that thoughtful of me? Besides, if someone had told everyone you weren't actually dead, the funeral team wouldn't have started the fire, would they? What happened to you is your own fault. You handed your life over to others. Did you really think they would protect you? Selena and your parents were right there. Why didn't they stop it? Chapter 6. Hearing my words, Ryan's bloodshot eyes filled with hatred, with the scars peeking through his bandages. He looked like a demon that had crawled out of hell. None of you will escape. You all ruined me. I stared at Ryan coldly. From the moment I was reborn, I never planned to take revenge on him, but he kept coming after me, again and again. His downfall was his own doing, driven by greed and selfishness. As I turned to leave, he suddenly grabbed my arm in a death grip. Fiona, I don't care whether you did it on purpose or not. You were the one who had them set the fire. You won't get away with this. I had expected him to act this way. I yanked my arm free and demanded, Then what do you want? Ryan stared at me, his eyes filled with madness. I want you to give up your study abroad placement and hand it over to me. Then, you'll stay here and take care of my parents for the rest of your life, like a slave. I couldn't hold back my laughter. Ryan, has the fire burned your brain too? In your current condition, You don't even meet the requirements for a government-sponsored study abroad program. Even if I wanted to give it to you, the school wouldn't approve it. And why the hell would I agree to such a ridiculous demand? At my words, he grabbed the glass cup from the table and hurled it at me. Fiona! I easily dodged it with a slight turn of my body. Ryan, just focus on recovering. You're in no position to do anything else. Without waiting for his furious response, I pushed open the door and walked out. The next day, Selena came to the hospital again, still begging Ryan to clear her father's name. But since he couldn't get what he wanted from me, he set his sights on Selena instead. Ryan demanded that Selena marry him, give up her study abroad placement, and stay behind to take care of him and his parents. Selena refused outright. In retaliation, Ryan immediately went to the police station and pushed for the strictest punishment for Daniel. Upon learning this, Selena had no choice but to find Ryan and agree to his demands. On the day of their marriage registration, Ryan arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau in a wheelchair. It was said that Selena cried the entire time, and the Civil Affairs staff nearly called the police several times, suspecting she was being forced into marriage. This only enraged Ryan further, and that night, he took his cane and beat Selena mercilessly. Because of Ryan's testimony, Daniel's sentence was significantly reduced, but his medical license was revoked. He would never be allowed to practice medicine again. The hospital compensated Ryan with a considerable sum of money. However, with one parent disabled and the other battling cancer, their family expenses far exceeded what they could afford. That money wouldn't last them a lifetime. Moreover, the ordeal had created a rift between Ryan and his parents. He hoarded all the money for himself, refusing to share it with them. At this point, I had only 2 days left before my departure for my study abroad program. I was in the university library, reading a book. Suddenly, 2 police officers pushed open the door and walked straight to my desk. They showed their IDs and looked at me with serious expressions. Miss Fiona, please come with us. Someone has accused you of attempted murder. The once quiet library erupted into murmurs, and all eyes turned to me. Oh my God, isn't she the top medical student? How could she be involved in a murder case? Who knows? Didn't they say she was accused of plagiarism before? I ignored the whispers and calmly packed my things before following the officers. I didn't even need to think. I already knew this was Ryan's doing. When I arrived at the police station, Ryan and his parents were already there, waiting for me. Ryan smirked triumphantly at me. Fiona, did you really think I wouldn't be able to bring you down? Chapter 7. I ignored Ryan's provocation and instead turned to the police officers. Officer, do they have any actual evidence proving I committed murder? Before the police could respond, Ryan's mother jumped up, pointing a trembling finger at me. Fiona, you were the one who ordered people to set my son on fire. Look at his face. Just look at what you did to him. If they hadn't put out the fire in time, my son would be dead. Ryan glared at me with pure hatred. Do you have anything to say for yourself? You ruined me. And that's a fact. I found it laughable. In my past life, I had wasted everything, my career, my future, for this miserable family. I wasn't going to argue with them. Instead, I used the police station's phone to call in my classmates who had been present that day, as well as the funeral director and staff. I had always been well-liked in my class, often helping my classmates. Moreover, since Ryan's funeral had never been completed, I hadn't asked the funeral team to refund the money. They were more than willing to do me this favor. So, as soon as they arrived, they immediately stepped forward to testify on my behalf. Officer, we only accepted this job because Ryan's parents presented us with a valid death certificate. That's right. We all saw it with our own eyes. Ryan's parents were the ones who told us he was dead. Exactly. I remember Ryan's parents crying the hardest that day, saying things like no parent should ever have to bury their child. As more and more testimonies were given, Ryan's face grew darker. The 2 police officers frowned, occasionally glancing at Ryan and his parents. Based on the witnesses' statements, the police dug into Ryan's previous case involving the forged death certificate from the hospital and fully understood what had happened. In the end, I was declared innocent and released. Meanwhile, Ryan and his parents were detained and reprimanded for filing a false police report. On the day of my departure, we gathered at the school entrance. My professor personally came to see me off. He patted my shoulder and said earnestly, "Fiona, your potential goes far beyond this. One day, you will become an outstanding doctor." Just then, Ryan appeared. When he saw my professor's hand on my shoulder, his expression twisted into one of realization. "So this is why you suddenly dumped me? You were hooking up with the professor all along. You really climbed your way up, didn't you? I bet you got your study abroad spot through shady means too. No wonder when I submitted my application, the professor convinced me to let you go instead. It all makes sense now." Seeing that he was about to continue spewing nonsense, I stormed forward and slapped him hard across the face. "Ryan, you disgusting piece of trash." I didn't hold back in the slightest. The impact was so strong that blood immediately seeped through the bandages on his face, making him look even more grotesque. Ryan wiped his face with his hand, staring in shock at the blood on his fingertips. For a moment, he was stunned. Then, rage consumed him. "You bitch. Fiona, you're asking for death." He raised his hand to hit me back, but I didn't give him the chance. I aimed a vicious kick right at his groin. With a strangled howl of agony, Ryan collapsed to his knees. I looked down at him from above. My relationship with the professor is completely innocent. Meanwhile, you've always been academically dishonest, lacking ability, and trying to take shortcuts with dirty tricks. You spend your life scheming against others. But in the end, all the consequences will come crashing back down on you. Before long, the school security arrived and dragged Ryan away. After saying my goodbyes to my old classmates, my fellow scholars and I boarded the bus to the airport, led by our professors. Sitting on the plane, watching the land below grow smaller and smaller, I finally felt a sense of peace settle over me. "Fiona, your new life is about to begin." Chapter 8. During my 6 years studying abroad, I became a completely different person. Unlike my previous life, I was no longer trapped in a kitchen, no longer worrying over every penny. I devoted myself entirely to medical research. There was simply too much to learn. If only I could stretch a single day into a whole week. The faster I learned, the sooner I could bring these advanced medical techniques back to my country and help more patients. Time was money, and since my homeland had invested in me, I vowed to repay that investment 100-fold. On the day we completed our studies, a foreign medical institute approached us. They offered incredibly high salaries, hoping to keep us and have us contribute to their country's medical advancements. That was when I finally understood why Ryan and Selena had stayed abroad for 20 years before returning. It wasn't patriotism that brought them back. They had been lured by high salaries, abandoning their original aspirations. Only when the competition abroad became too fierce and they could no longer survive did they choose to return. Realizing this, I rejected their offer without hesitation. A few of my fellow scholars couldn't resist the temptation and chose to stay behind. I didn't try to persuade them. Everyone must be responsible for their own choices. The day I returned home was bright and sunny. Dressed in a stylish floral dress, I felt vibrant and full of life. The first thing I did was visit my professor and old classmates. My professor had been promoted to vice principal, having nurtured countless students over the years. A few of my old classmates greeted me warmly, teasing me. "Fiona, you used to dress so dull all the time. This outfit actually suits you. I read your research paper in the medical journal, Classic Fiona. If that new drug gets developed, it'll save so many lives. Come on, Fiona just got back and you're already talking about work. You're just like Ryan. Ugh, why bring him up?" Hearing Ryan's name piqued my curiosity. "It's fine," I said casually. "What happened to Ryan?" My old classmate shook his head mysteriously. "A lot has happened in the 6 years you were gone, especially with Ryan. It's like he's been possessed or something. For the first 2 years, he did nothing but drink himself into a stupor at home. Then one day, out of nowhere, he sobered up and started raving about how everything was just a dream and none of this was real. His parents freaked out and sent him to a psychiatric hospital. But after just a few days, he suddenly returned to normal. When he was discharged, he started spending all his time in the school's laboratory. He told the dean that he was working on some kind of miracle cold medicine. But the dean didn't take him seriously and just let him be. At first, everyone thought it was just another one of his delusions. But shockingly, He actually developed something successful. The research institute wanted to hire him, but he turned them down because he thought the salary was too low and went to work for a foreign company instead. Hearing this, my heart skipped a beat. A bold thought crept into my mind. Could it be that Ryan had also been reborn? To confirm my suspicion, I parted ways with my classmates and made my way to Ryan's house. The once rundown home had been completely renovated into a Western-style two-story villa. Just as I stood at the entrance, the door creaked open. A woman with disheveled hair and ragged clothes stepped out, her sallow face covered in bruises. She struggled to carry a heavy bucket of kitchen waste, wobbling with each step. Ryan's mother followed close behind, her voice shrill and full of contempt. "Why are you so damn slow? What's the point of us keeping you around if you're just going to laze around all day? Be careful, or I'll tell Ryan to kick you out." I stood frozen in shock. The battered woman in front of me was Selena. Chapter 9. So it wasn't just me. Whoever married Ryan was doomed to become his family's slave. Even Selena, who had once been madly in love with Ryan in our past life, couldn't escape this fate. Perhaps sensing my gaze, Selena suddenly looked up at me. "Fiona?" Her voice was loud enough that Ryan heard it from inside the house. Moments later, he stepped out and invited me in for coffee. I didn't refuse. The bandages on Ryan's face were long gone, leaving behind a grotesque network of scars, thick and twisted like centipedes crawling across his skin. Paired with his sharp, calculating eyes, his entire demeanor radiated a menacing aura. He placed a cup of steaming coffee in front of me and spoke slowly. "Fiona, you've been reborn too." I looked at him but didn't deny it. Ryan smirked and continued. "Don't overthink it. I don't have any hidden agenda. You must have already guessed that I was reborn as well. At first, I hated you, but over time, I came to terms with it. In our past life, I stole your study abroad placement and even caused your death, of course. You'd want revenge. But in this life, even without studying abroad, I still came out on top thanks to my memories from the past. I've thrived regardless. You just came back, and you're merely a research institute staff member. Meanwhile, I'm a high-level technical executive at a foreign company, making more money than you could ever dream of. No matter what, you'll never surpass me." I didn't care about any of that. Instead, I thought about the sight of Selena just moments ago. Unable to hold back, I asked, "If you've also been reborn, then you should remember that in our past life, Selena was the love of your life. So why are you treating her like this now?" Ryan scoffed, his eyes filled with disdain. "You women are always obsessed with love and relationships. In our past life, Selena was my equal, someone who was also a talented researcher. That kind of woman was worthy of being my wife. Look at her now, just a washed-up housewife. I wouldn't even take her outside. She's an embarrassment." Maybe it was out of pity for the past version of myself, but I couldn't help speaking up for Selena. "If you don't love her anymore, then divorce her. Let her go. You're the one who trapped her here and turned her into this. She could have been a brilliant doctor, making a name for herself in the medical field." Ryan let out a cold chuckle. "Why would I let her go when I have a free housemaid? As long as she takes care of my parents, I can focus on making money and advancing my career." "Fiona, don't act like you can lecture me. If you hadn't run away, the one suffering here today would have been you. Come to think of it, you should actually thank Selena. She's the one taking your place in this hell." After saying that, Ryan suddenly burst into laughter. "Fucking lunatic." I muttered a curse under my breath, seeing that there was no point in talking to him any further. I stood up and prepared to leave. As soon as I stepped outside, I saw Selena standing at the door. She walked with me to the front gate. "Fiona, thank you. Even after I helped Ryan hurt you in the past, you still spoke up for me." "Selena, loving the wrong person isn't the real tragedy. The real tragedy is letting yourself stay trapped. You still have a long life ahead of you. It's not too late to start over." I saw her hands tremble slightly at my words. I had said all I could. What she did next was up to her. 3 days later, I saw Selena's name in the newspaper. She had sued Ryan, accusing him of domestic violence and treason. It turned out that over the years, Ryan had illegally infiltrated the National Research Institute, stealing classified research data and selling it to foreign companies. With his memories from our past life, he knew the research institute inside and out. If Selena hadn't stepped forward and reported him, no one might have ever found out. The evidence was overwhelming, and Ryan was sentenced on the spot. Upon hearing the news, Ryan's mother couldn't accept the reality and hanged herself. His father drowned in the river after days of drinking himself into a stupor. 5 years later, the research institute I worked for had successfully developed a new, patented drug. This time, the formula was entirely homegrown. Without relying on foreign technology, the costs were significantly reduced, making life-saving medicine affordable for ordinary families. I stood in front of my parents' graves and gently placed a bouquet of chrysanthemums on the ground. Mom, Dad, if you were still here, I know you'd be proud of me.